It's that time again, ladies and gentlemen. It is the Food Nerd Vanity Project.
Hey.
We are back. That is clearly Fee. I am clearly Chris. And we're back and we're sort of on time, people. Isn't this amazing? It's especially since we know somebody is traveling over to America. This is incredible. We're on time. And it's almost like we recorded this the second we finished episode 2. Yeah, we did. So, Ivan
fucking Orkin.
We don't need a flowery intro for this. We don't need to wax lyrical about this. We just need to start with the sentence that I think sums up this man the best. And the sentence that sums up this man the best is when they talk about ramen and his comment of, I chose ramen because I can do whatever the fuck I want.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Oh, you told me that I was going to love this man.
Oh, okay. So for everyone out there, I watched all of Chef's Table ahead of Chris, and I said to him I wouldn't ruin it, and I certainly won't ruin it until we get into the episode here. But I was like, you will love. And I think I used much more colourful language than that, but you will love.
You used Ivan language.
Yeah, I used Ivan language. I now have found my one foodie soulmate through Ivan.
Oh, this
just.
I was watching this episode in another room from Christy, and all she could hear was me pissing myself laughing as we were discussing, as Ivan was talking about everything, and just the way that he was, what you see, what you get. This is a guy who's lived a life, and this is a guy who is, he's not what you expect a ramen chef to be. He's not what you expect a chef to be.
I was going to say that very same thing, but how refreshing is it? He reminds me very much of Alex Atala and his backstory. You know, how did you get into cooking? Oh, well, I was in the UK and I needed a working visa, so I ended up.
You know who he reminds me of?
Yeah.
He's Bourdain.
Yeah.
He's the Bourdain of ramen. I sort of see him because he's got that, he has that compassion, he has that love, he has that drive, but at the same time, he's a fucking sailor. And he's in the industry, for better or worse, he's in that industry, and fuck it if he's not doing it his way.
We're apologising in advance for the number of
No, there's no apologies here. F-bomb City Limits. Why? Because Ivan does it.
But Chris...
First 43 seconds... F-bombs everywhere.
But Chris, didn't I tell you that you would love this not just for the food, for the theatre that is Ivan, but also the theatre that is Japanese food, but just his story? It's
funny, it's warm, it's terrifyingly, heartbreakingly sad.
Oh.
It's delightfully whimsical at times. It's everything, every human emotion in one episode of television. It was just,
It's such a good story to watch. This is, if they did a documentary just on him by himself without summing it up into the 40-odd minutes that is a Chef's Table episode, I'd be tuning in. I'd be watching it again and again. This guy, I can't stress to everyone else out there. I mean, as much as we love Nancy in that last episode that we talked about, I really do identify with Ivan. The man fucking loves good food. He loves food himself. He loves eating it, not just making it.
And let's start with that point, because I want to start with that point. How many chefs who are world-class chefs do you know of who learned how to do this not by being trained, but by just going and eating it? And his training for ramen was, no one trained me. I just went, while I was a house husband in Japan, I just went to different ramen places and ate their ramen and worked out what I liked and what I didn't like.
Learn by eating, people. Learn by eating.
The chase for umami, I think, is what this should actually be subtitled.
Actually, yeah, that's a great description.
Yes, Ivan Orkin, the chase for umami. Discussing Ivan is tricky in itself, because as he puts it down, when he opened his ramen place in Japan, why were people coming in? I know why they were fucking well coming in. It was a white Jewish guy from New York cooking ramen. They all wanted to come in and watch me fall on my face.
Bring the family and the kids and we'll point and laugh.
Point at the white man making ramen. And by the way, just on a side note, I want to be on that, not to watch. I want to be on that show with that guy calling himself the ramen detective.
Yes. Oh my God.
I am the ramen detective. I love Japanese TV.
Okay, before we launch into all this, the other reason why I love this episode so much is, as you know, Chris, from Bake Off and talking to you and Christy and anyone else who gives me the time of day, I love Japanese food.
Yes.
I'm Vietnamese by heritage, but and as much as I have grown to really appreciate Vietnamese food as I've gotten older, I was the fussiest kid, by the way. I had to have like Macca's at least once a week. And I was also one of those kids that really envied other people, you know, Italian families having pasta, whereas I'd come home to rice all the time. I craved nothing more growing up than, you know, meat and 3 veg. And now it's just like, oh, well, I'm so glad I grew out of that.
Yeah.
And really appreciate the cuisine for what it is. But with no disrespect to my family of any kind, in terms of the pecking order of my favorite cuisines, like Japanese food sits like daylight ahead of everything else, and then Vietnamese food, because I just love the different styles, the freshness, the lightness of the food, just the complexity of it. And ramen is one of those things that, you know, everyone looks at it, and I'm sure Ivan probably looked at it as well. Oh yeah, it's just a bowl of noodles, but it really isn't. If any, really good ramen, much like ramen is like the Vietnamese pho.
Yeah.
Beef noodle soup. You know, you're talking 18, 24, 36 hours worth of stock making alone. That's
and watching him make that stock.
Oh God.
Yeah. And like, I love the way, by the way, he flips like vegetables out while he's doing it, and just like, oh, well, keeps going. No cut, no, just keep stirring.
And it reminds me of like a really specific thing my mum said to me growing up. I said to her, we'd always go out as a sort of family tradition on weekends, particularly on Saturdays, and go out and have lunch. And we generally go out and have like a bowl of pho or something like that. And I said to Mum, like, oh, why don't you make it at home? She's like, look, for $7 a bowl, I'd rather go make it. There's no way I'm fucking making like stock for 24 hours. I can tell you the red hot tip. And anyone who knows how to make stock in general, you know what a labor of love it is. I've tried making ramen stock once. I put it on for 16 hours, and even then I was watching it like a hawk the entire time.
I was explaining to somebody actually yesterday your story of making these 16 hours worth of stock, and she just looked at me and went, why? Why? And I'm like, you got to understand, you got to do it once.
You've got to give it a crack. And I'm going to give it another go, because on top of making the stock, I actually want to do the char siu that goes with it, and that's 36 hours in the sous vide.
Well, as I've said to you as well, I'm currently on holidays, and so I'm going to be making a couple of things out of the food lab.
There you go.
Which may be documented for people, so you may actually see this beforehand. Who knows? It may show up somewhere. That's all I'm going to say. But I'm going to be making stuff from the food lab, and it won't be the ramen broth. Just a tip. I don't have 16 hours that I really want to commit to that at this point in time. You know, maybe in the Christmas holidays. Who knows?
But everyone thinks they know Japanese food, and I don't, the sushi rolls, not even close.
No.
I think if you really want to like a nice introduction to Japanese food, I think ramen is the most welcoming food you could possibly eat. It's meant to be slurped, it's meant to be messy, and it's meant to be fucking good.
And when I messaged you the other day when I was watching this, and I was talking to you about this, and my comment was, I actually, and this is true, I stopped. And people that had me on social will know this, I stopped the episode and went down the road and got ramen. Because when I said about Nancy, I was just looking and going, I really want this. Watching Ivan and ramen, I just went, fuck this. Paused it, went down the road, bought ramen, came back, finished off Ivan while eating ramen. Because I couldn't not have it at this point in time. The
only way you could possibly make an homage to him is to eat ramen while you're watching his episode on.
Yeah, I actually went, where's the nearest Japanese place that does decent ramen? Found it. It was 5 minutes up the road. Went, good. Paused. Went down the road. Got the ramen. Came back. So went on menu log. Went book. Okay, you don't deliver. Good. I'm coming to you. So that was the other night. This is how inspiring Ivan was to me. So his work with the ramen, watching him make this, it's not pretentiously glamorous in any way, shape, or form.
I'll give you a great example of how unglamorous it is. If you follow him on Instagram, he's got this great post I think earlier in the year. It's just a bunch of ladles hanging on it like a wall, and he just sort of says, ramen making, all you need is a ladle, pretty simple. And hashtag honest cooking.
Yeah,
who it is. And
he doesn't hide. He doesn't hide the fact that he's not doing anything ultra fancy in terms of the technique. What he does is understand the mix.
Yeah, this is all flavor.
His fascination is flavor over everything else.
And my favorite thing about his own flavor profile is when he was working out, the umami that he wanted for his own ramen. And it was an absolute stroke of genius adding in roasted tomatoes.
Yeah, the fact that it's something as simple as roasted tomatoes in ramen.
Yeah.
And that's what got him respect, credibility, and just everyone going, this guy knows his stuff.
Yeah.
And the idea that it was roasted tomato that got it there is incredible. Something that's simple.
But what a testament to the respect and love he has for Japanese food as well. No one says that you have to be, of Japanese descent, or you have to be Asian to appreciate and cook really good Asian food. What did he do? He just ate thousands of bowls of ramen.
And what he did with setting up that restaurant in Japan is, for me, one of the signs of somebody who knows and understands the food, which is, it's always the philosophy that I hold when I'm eating a cuisine of, a different background to myself. Where are the people of that background eating?
Yeah.
Where are they going? Where are the people who know this food eating? And as he said, when they went, why aren't you opening up where all the tourists are? And his comment was, I don't fucking want tourists. I want locals.
That's right.
I want Japanese people. I don't want the tourists coming in to eat my ramen. I want the locals eating it. And then when he talks about going to America, and he says, back to America, and he says, just as I didn't want to westernize Japanese culture, and do this bastardization, I didn't want to come to America and just do a Japanese take. I wanted to sort of blend it together.
Yeah.
And again, that's sort of, it's interesting because he's got this lovely mix of, he is very deeply respectful of the food. He is very deeply respectful and loves that culture. But he also opens up the episode with, I'm kind of a go fuck yourself kind of guy.
Yeah.
So it's this dichotomy of this personality, which if you go through the first part of that story is, I don't really have an aim in life. I don't really have anything I want to do with my life. I'm just going to sort of bounce around a little bit, including his idea of selling the computer chips. And I didn't sell a chip. I didn't understand a single thing I was doing. Just this guy who bounced around aimlessly, and Japan became a link. And it's interesting. It's a society with, and I think he's the sort of personality, and his wife says that when she was talking about when he was sort of at his end when they were in Japan, that he needs guidance.
Yeah.
He's one of these persons, and I think that's the benefit for someone like Ivan of Japanese culture is this structural guidance.
Yeah.
There are some customary rules you need to follow.
And I think there's something really lovely about, as you say, the dichotomy of being so respectful of where this food's come from, the culture that it's originated from, but also by the same token, having the confidence to be really self-assured.
Yeah,
I think that's a really interesting mix. But also, I don't know, I feel like Ivan just sets the bar for anyone out there in terms of, you don't have to know what you want to do in life from the very get-go, from the time you finish school. It is okay to bounce around, and if you bounce around enough, hopefully you'll be lucky enough to find your passion, fall into it, and make not a career but make a life out of it. And I think that's why I just have such a great appreciation for him as a person, because I feel like sometimes I'm a jack of all trades but a master of none. But maybe it's because I haven't found what it is that I'm really, really good at yet. But who says that you have to be good at something early on in life? If you've got the passion and the drive for it, you'll, like anything, you'll put the time in, and practice makes perfect, I suppose.
I mean, he bounces around within the industry too. I mean, it's not until much later. Like, again, who would have thought that you could, like we talked with Nancy Silverton, and she is used and utilised by Wolfgang Puck in a way that helps both of their reputations and images. He works with Bobby Flay.
Yeah.
But Bobby Flay is such a minor part of this story because he's still bouncing around and doesn't know what he wants. I love that story, though, of Bobby saying to him after the first night, "How'd you go?" And he's like, "I nailed it." Bobby's like, "You got killed."
Yeah, you got absolutely slammed.
And the idea of, but what I also loved is that for a lot of the time, there's this passion that is so driven of, I know what I want to do and I'm not going to do anything other than. What I like about Ivan's story is that he freely says, I needed something stable. So I just went and worked for Restaurant Associates.
Yeah.
And took a paid soulless job while I worked out what I wanted in life.
Yep.
And I like the fact that he has that ability to say, look, I didn't love it, but I needed it.
But that was the minor sacrifice that he made to get to where he is.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just having the perspective, I think, and gaining the perspective, I think, to know where you would like to be, just how, I think if Ivan's message is very clear, look, I think he always knew what he wanted to do, where he wanted to be. He just didn't know how to get there under the circumstances. And yeah, like leading into that, the story is so much more than about him and his love of food and, you know, opening up this like restaurant and becoming this ramen like sort of demigod. It was such a personal story with his first wife.
Oh, when we get to the Tammy and the just wow.
Yeah, goes to Japan, falls in love, gets married. I thought, isn't that lovely? And then
has a child. They're living together. It's
she's pregnant with their second, and you know, you feel like, oh, great, this guy who's finally found his real home.
Yep.
Like, you know, he always identifies that, you know, Japan is pretty much home to him.
I had this moment in the episode, not knowing the story ahead of time. And when he says, you know, got pregnant and talking about that, and then he goes, she got sick on Tuesday. And when he said she got sick on Tuesday, I went, oh no.
Yeah.
No, I know how this goes. Don't do this to me. By Friday night, she was in a coma. No, she died on a Saturday. And it's just, no.
And the one thing that really tugged at my heartstrings was seeing that photo of him and his, what I think then 2-year-old son on the bed. And Ivan just looked exhausted, obviously, and was just sleeping alongside him. And you just think, holy shit, this guy's now lost his wife, lost, you know, their unborn child, but now he's a single dad, just like that.
Yep.
Just like that. And just when he was finding his rhythm and finding his feet, and I was gutted, really gutted.
And then it was the wanting Isaac to have a connection, going back to Japan, and then, you know, a few years down the track, meets this other woman, Mari, and their relationship. Goals. There are goals in this relationship. There are a couple of reasons why there are goals in this relationship. One, the fact they got married within 3 months, because it was just like, are we doing this or what? Secondly, she's perfect for him because she doesn't have time for his shit. And I love that. The fact that she makes fun of the fact that when he turned up, he had his T-shirt tucked into shorts with glasses and a haircut that matched his son. And she's a stylist. I just love this idea of he wasn't my type. But it's like, of course he wasn't. You've worked wonders with this man. The backpack all the time. And then the other thing I love just about this relationship, apart from her supportive nature, and we'll come back to that in a minute, the scene where they're cooking for his parents.
Yeah.
And here he is, this renowned ramen chef, and there she is telling him, no, that's crap. No, more of that. And he's like, more? And she's like, no, that's not right. More. And he's like, okay. So she's bossing him around in the kitchen going, no, you're not right. Do it again.
I also love, it illustrates like this lovely family unit. Like he said, you know, her son just fell in love with his son.
Yeah.
And it all just came together, and I just think, oh man, like how lucky is this guy, and so deserving of having lightning strike twice for him, you know, falling in love again and creating this family unit and just going about his business.
Mm.
I just thought, yeah, I was so gutted that, you know, when you hear the tragedy that hits him, and then, yeah, it all comes together, and then that's when he starts, you know, because she's obviously his second wife, has obviously a very well-established career, and she's quite busy, and so that's when he started hitting the pavement and going and eating ramen.
and talking about, and again, it's that link back to Japan, and it's the importance and the reason why this episode works so well is that it's not just a story about a guy who's really good and loves ramen. It's a guy who has ingrained ties to a culture, and it's the appreciation of the culture that means that he appreciates ramen. And ramen for him, I think, is his expression of the culture and his expression of his love and gratitude for Japan. And that's why he puts so much effort and work into ramen and so much effort into this taste for the flavour of umami, which he talks about so often, and, you know, try to balance up that. And as one of the reviewers says, most people, when they go for the umami flavour when they're Western making this, just go MSG.
Yep.
And what he loves about what they do is he goes looking for the flavour. He doesn't cheat. He doesn't put MSG in there. He goes and comes up with the flavour combination that's going to get the umami.
I love him retelling the day Ivan Ramen first opened.
Oh, yes.
And, you know, he's like, oh, yeah, he's trying to drain the noodles everywhere, all over the floor, like fucking shit's hit the fan and everything. This guy comes in, this self-professed, you know, professor of ramen, comes in, has a bowl, finishes, says something to him in Japanese really quickly. And at this point, like, Ivan knows how to speak Japanese, it just, you know, not as quickly as a local to comprehend.
Yeah.
And he's just walked out, and then he's just like, oh, okay. Well.
But what I love is that even with, you know, the clear respect and he holds and esteem he holds the reviewer in, when he walks out and he goes, in my head, I'm like, I speak Japanese, you fuck. It's such an Ivan thing. Like, he loves and respects this guy and thinks the world, and this guy clearly thinks the world of Ivan and his abilities. But it's just the way that even in that interplay, it's like in my head I'm going, I speak Japanese, you fuck. It's the most amazing interplay, and it sums it up. I mean, everyone, even his own mother goes, he was just really difficult to live with. We didn't quite know where he was going in life. We didn't quite know what he was going to do with his life. And again, this idea of this white Long Island Jewish kid whose passion and ability is traditional Japanese ramen, and like the tweaks. And it's not reinventing that makes these sort of cuisines outstanding. It's tweaking it. And the tweak of adding the different flour to ramen, the noodles, and making his own noodles. That's just a tweak. He hasn't reinvented it. He's tweaked it.
Yeah. I want to make or learn to make my own soba noodles as well as like ramen noodles. But there's a particular ingredient that you can't get here in Australia, or it's quite difficult to get in order to make it. But yeah, as soon as he says, oh, he makes his own noodles, I'm like, get out of here, Ivan. Seriously? Like, you make like your own fucking stock. Just get out of here. Like,
yeah, that's what even said the reviewer, you know, the man who, as he says, I have eaten more ramen than anybody on the planet. And I love the fact that he's normal. He's like normal, sort of, for Western people, a normal reviewer, right up until the point where he actually introduces himself. At which point he becomes the most Japanese man in this documentary. Hello, my name is this. I am a ramen reviewer. I have eaten more bowls of ramen than anyone else. I have eaten over 25,000 bowls of ramen. And he just becomes so Japanese at that moment. Extremely Japanese at that moment. But as he says, most people, when they make ramen, the difference they have in their ramen is they make their own. He said, you know, there's the two. There's the big production line sort of ramen places, and then the artisan ramen places. But even the artisan ramen places don't make their own noodles.
Yeah.
It's the broth. The broth is the difference.
Noodle making is this entirely onerous process in itself.
Yeah, and I mean it's a difficult process to start with, but secondly, who's going to come up with a way to mess with the noodles? I mean, it just seems to be their noodles.
Yeah.
Don't mess with them. The flavour is in the broth. What he works out is that, no, the noodles can have their own flavour too. And you can make them something that's far more engaging.
Yeah.
So
I have no words to describe the fact of how much I love ramen.
Oh.
But then I was like, okay, well, I think I love ramen. Nah, I'm not even close to how much like Ivan loves ramen.
No, he really loves ramen.
Through the episode that he goes and, you know, eats ramen as well. And he's got the camera out, he's Instagramming, you know,
I love that he opens up with an Instagram. He's sitting there Instagramming his food. And there are so many chefs nowadays that, you know, complain about people coming into their restaurant and Instagramming the food. And meanwhile, there's Ivan Orkin at a ramen bar, just Instagramming his ramen.
Yep.
Because that's Ivan, and he loves food and loves ramen.
Yeah.
And it's like when he talks about his first meal that he ever had working in a Japanese restaurant.
Oh, yeah. He was like, he came in, he was really hungry. So they just said, all right, so cracked open, like bowl of rice, cracked open a raw egg, sprinkled on like, I can't remember what he said. It was like the little seaweed sort of sprinkling, and, you know, mixed it all together. And he was like, oh, okay. But then he said, you know, it was, it's got chicken sort of poultry flavour with seafood flavour, and he's like, this is
and it's also really substantial, so it's going to keep you fed.
Yeah, but it's really bloody good.
Yeah, I looked at that, and I've never pondered eating raw eggs like that, and I looked at it and I went, I think I could do that.
I totally wanted to go like cook some rice, and
I thought about it. I won't lie, I did contemplate it. I looked in the fridge and went, do I have eggs? I didn't have eggs at the time. That's the only reason I didn't do it. And, you know, I don't keep seaweed on hand. I know, it's unusual, it's crazy. I should have seaweed at all times. We understand this. But I think the Ivan episode is a break from a lot of what's happened on Chef's Table, insofar as you're not getting, and I mean, Nancy was the same sort of thing. There's a realness to what you're doing, you know, and a lot of them that you've still got very artisans, like there's a tweezer involved in preparing this food.
Yeah.
Ivan doesn't have tweezers in that kitchen. There's no purpose. There is absolutely no purpose. And, I mean, can I just say, any man who makes a tray full of that much pork belly is a hero. And he may not be the hero that we deserve, but he's a hero we need. We don't deserve him. We don't deserve any man who makes that much pork belly, but I'm going to say right now he's needed.
But this is one of those things where it's just food. It doesn't have to, as you say, have the gold leaf, have the tweezers or anything to be good food. You know, there's some amazing street food out there. There's some like food trucks serving up brilliant fucking food in, you know, paper plates and cardboard like boxes and all this sort of stuff. It doesn't have to be refined to be really good. And this is the other thing. Like a mate of mine at work always used to laugh. He's like, "Oh, Fee, I love that you know, are a self-proclaimed wannabe foodie, yet, you know, you'll go eat a cheeseburger." I'm like, yeah, when I'm fucking hungover, like a cheeseburger and 15 hash browns will hit the spot.
Yeah.
Food is what you love. And that's why I'm like, it doesn't have to be a Michelin star restaurant. It doesn't have to be, as long as there's no salmonella. Other than that, it's probably a pretty good feat. And the
thing is that you don't, you know, there is, you know, and as I said, as a foodie as well, there's this dichotomy that I always find between, you know, that's sensational, and it's one of these ones where it's, what a restaurant, what a glowing review of this restaurant. It's a very rare experience, blah, 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 blah. And then there are times when you just want to go down the local hamburger shop and get a local mate hamburger with egg and, you know, everything just slapped on it. And it's horrible in many ways, but in many other ways, it just satiates your soul. And it's like, I really just want that. Like I went to a sort of fancy restaurant yesterday with a friend, and what did I have? I had macaroni and cheese.
Oh,
because I just wanted macaroni and cheese. And by the way, sensational macaroni and cheese.
By the way, if you are in the mood for macaroni and cheese, please try the Kenji Lopez Alt recipe on Series E. It's such a good mac and cheese.
That will probably find its way into my review of Kenji's food. And also, can I just make mention again? There's that in the Babish thing that I linked everyone to in the last episode, Binging with Babish. When he makes his mayonnaise and a couple of other things, he says, "I'm using Kenji Lopez Alt's recipe." Kenji appears everywhere. Once you start looking for Kenji is everywhere.
Kenji's amazing.
It's all things to all people.
But he actually teaches you reasons why food is cooked the way it should be cooked. And that's what I love about his recipes. And in fact, every contributor's recipes on Serious Eats is, you always get people saying, oh, look, add a bit of extra this, but they don't tell you why.
Yeah.
And I am one of these people that I'm obsessed with knowing why you add it. What's the benefit? That's what I need to know. Like, don't tell me you add it just because, that's how you've always done it. What do you see? What benefit do you gain from it? Because basically, if there's one less step for me, I'm all for it. Whereas if I'm going to take the extra time to, put in the time, do the 16-hour broth, I want to know why I need to put the time in.
Now, again, with the talking heads on there, by the way, I've had a look at Osaki's The Ramen Database online, and they've done the translation in Japanese to English. I can read and speak a bit of Japanese, but it's not enough to be able to read a ramen website. But my God, some of the stuff is incredible. So going around, just finding reviews of ramen if you really want to. If you're in Japan and want to eat good ramen, just go and find his reviews. It's the easiest way to do it. And there's a lot of good ramen out there.
And ramen's really varied too. So anyone who, thinks they have an idea of ramen, depending on the region that, a chef will come from or where you are traveling in Japan, I had a couple of different ramen experiences, really, really different. So we went to Kyoto and a couple of our friends took us to the ramen noodle bar, and they ordered the specialty. It's huge. It was like a pot of ramen that came out. It had a giant pork knuckle in it, and all this shredded cabbage. I could barely sort of move anything about in the bowl to sort of stir it all up. And then the broth itself was almost gelatinous. It was really, really thick. And that was what they were renowned for. And for me personally, I didn't like it. I just thought it was a bit too much in terms of mouthfeel and stuff like that. But then you go to another place and it might be a miso-based broth. It might be a soy-based broth. It's so varied. And yeah, this is the thing. I mean, yes, it's ladles. Yes, it's noodles and, a few ingredients laid up into a bowl. But just because it's sitting in a bowl, you slurp it, with some chopsticks and a spoon is in no way, shape or form a reflection on how refined or how good or how bad it is. It's just, I think it's a cuisine on its own, ramen. I mean, there's thousands upon thousands of ramen noodle stores in Japan. That's how much of a cultural dish this is.
And there are a couple of dishes that I've actually, because I went onto the Serious Eats website and had a look at the reviews of Ivan and talking about the menu. And what I love about their reviews, and you've obviously been to Serious Eats, if you haven't been to Serious Eats, people, what are you doing? Is they do a should I order it on the end of it when they do a review. Should I order it? Yes or no? And there are three things that I saw on the menu, one of which is in this episode at the end when they're doing all the bowls. The first one was the Chinese broccoli and garlic, which I would really love. The second was Japanese fried chicken, which is the chicken livers and the hearts double breaded, done a bit like a Korean sort of stir fry. And the third, which is in the episode, and was the thing that I really looked at, was the triple pork, triple garlic.
Just garlic.
Yeah, me and my garlic, but and pork. So therefore, triple pork, triple garlic. That I saw that and I nearly jumped through the TV. So I think that in terms of and in terms of cinematography, just briefly as well, there's not as many chance for the beauty shots that you get in the other episodes, except they then walk through the cherry blossoms.
Oh, yeah.
And the cherry blossoms are just, you've got to do the cherry blossoms. And some of that cinematography is world class. Just the greatest footage you'll ever see. The angles on the cherry blossoms, the focus on the cherry blossoms. But
having said that, there's a beauty to a ramen noodle store. There's so much action going on. There's big vats of...
Organised chaos.
It is. And I love that. And when you go to a ramen noodle bar, that's what you're there for anyway. You sit at the counter, you slurp away, but you see everything that's going on, and that's the beauty of it.
It's like people are going to a teppanyaki and getting upset that the chef is throwing food at them.
No. If you're not wearing it, that guy's not wearing it.
He hasn't done a good job. No, if you're not wearing it, he hasn't done a good job. Or he's Barney Stinson. Anyway, so with that in mind, let's move on to the sort of ending. Now, I figured I needed a recommendation for this episode that was Japanese. And the one that instantly came to mind is a place called Inoya, which is over in Kirribilli. So it's over on the fancy side of the Harbour Bridge in Sydney. Has a lovely sort of, view of Milson's Point Station, and it's throwing distance from the harbour. And just good, simple Japanese food. Their dumplings in particular just were incredible. The prawn starter was sensational, and I'm yet to have anything there that is remotely poor. It's just incredible, and there's Dimmy reviews up of them, and if you go to the Dimmy reviews, it's 5 stars, and not ultra expensive either, and just really well done Japanese food. So that's my little review for the end of the episode in terms of recommendations. Inoya Japanese over at Kirribilli.
My turn. I'm putting my hand up even though you can't see it. Pick me.
Okay, I choose Fee.
Yay! Okay, mine's going to sound really, really pretentious, but hear me out. Pack your bags, pack your passport, some clean underwear, head to Japan, head to Tokyo, and go to Suta. Suta is the only Michelin star ramen noodle store in the world. It got awarded its star at the end of 2015, and rightfully fucking so. I lined up for 3.5 hours, and it was worth every minute. It sits 9 people. You go in there, you order out of a little ticket vending machine. I asked the guy, there's a line that goes around the block. So I asked the guy, do you have a table? He gives you a little ticket. It's not a guaranteed ticket to get in. What it does is it just gives you an indicative time of how long you might otherwise need to wait. And I said, can I, take photos? Again, like most ramen noodle bars, it's open, you sit at the bar. He said, you cannot take photos of the kitchen because the guys are, doing their tools of the trade, things like that. But you can take all the photos you like of your actual bowl of noodles when they come out. 3.5 hours later, I'm sitting there. It is amazing. I know, most people don't go by Michelin stars and all this sort of stuff. Again, food is very subjective, and I really appreciate that. You may or may not like it. I personally thought that this was living up to the hype. It was worth me sitting, standing, whatever it was that I was doing in line for 3.5 hours. I think I was playing Candy Crush. And it was fucking worth it. It was my first foray into trying ramen noodles that was a soy-based broth, not a miso-based one. Mm-hmm. There was porcini mushroom flavors. There was amazing noodles. And I sat next to a Japanese businessman who traveled from the north of Japan. He said, how did you hear about it? I said, on the internet. He said, yes, so did I. He'd been waiting for 4.5 hours, and he was only in town for the day. So
that gives you an idea.
Yeah, and this is how much I really wanted to go to this place, by the way. I left my other half, Nick, dying from man flu in an Airbnb, and he said, oh, we were supposed to go together. I'm like, yeah, too fucking bad. And it was brilliant. It was so good.
Nick, I promise you when we go for cured meats and cheese, I will make sure you're there.
But more locally, just very, very quickly, anyone in Melbourne, if you haven't tried Capo, I really love Capo. They do an amazing omakase menu. The chef's sort of selection, really, really lovely. My other place, which I've heard amazing things, but have not had the privilege of getting in because every time I try and make a reservation, I'm pretty sure I'm laughed at, is Mina Mishima. Apparently, it is an amazing sushi restaurant, and if you can get a seat at the bar, I heard it's the best seat in the house. Perfect.
And I like places, by the way, that encourage you to take photos of the food. And again, it comes, a lot of people bitch about it online about it being wankerish and pretentious, and no, it's showing a passion for the food. I really like this. Look, this is awesome. And I like that idea. I have once, I'm not going to name the place, but there was a bakery in Brisbane that I bought food at and took a photo of it at the table and was screamed at and told, you cannot take a photo of your food. I'm like, I bought it. It's mine. And they yelled at me about the fact that I was taking photos of the food in the bakery, and I couldn't do it. It wasn't at the counter. I was taking photos of it at my table. And they yelled at me about it and told me that was completely inappropriate and that I shouldn't be doing that. So
I think there's two sides to why people don't want you to take photos. One is that I think the chefs really do want you to enjoy the food.
Yes.
And not let it sit cold and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, absolutely. I'm one of these people that I will take photos of my food, but I won't, move it about until it goes dead cold and then I don't actually enjoy it.
Yeah, my photo taking of this cake involved me literally just before I ate it going, oh, I'll take a photo, put my phone up, not at anybody else, and got yelled at from behind the...
But see, that's silly because on the other side of that same coin is that food's all about the experience. It's a sensory experience, whether it's sight, smell, sounds, everything, right? So, yeah, I think anything that, helps you as the consumer enjoy your experience more. I mean, yeah.
To give you an idea of that, their food is nice and their baked goods are sensational, but I've never been back.
Yeah,
because that experience now is not what I'm after. So anyway, with that in mind, we'll wrap this episode up for now. We will be back, in the very near future with another episode. Obviously, by the time you hear this, there'll hopefully be something up there about how wonderful Nancy Silverton's place was. So, because one of us is lucky enough to get to go, hint, not me. I think I'll probably be going to Grilled. So there's my foodie adventures. In the meantime, up until next episode, I've been Chris.
I've been Fee. Go get yourself a bowl of ramen now.
Indeed, and we'll catch you later. Bye.
Bye.